Welcome back to The Weakest Explorer. Today, Rowan and his wonderfully underqualified party are about to discover that every possible marching order creates a new comedic problem. Establish the location, time, and emotional temperature before the immediate action. If their confidence looks suspiciously larger than their qualifications, that is because nobody has learned anything from the last disaster. Let us get into it. Dawnwell waits beneath the morning mist. Unfortunately, the real first boss is deciding who walks where. Brienne claims the front with shield raised and enough confidence to block the entire entrance. Rowan tries the middle, where Brienne's shield immediately removes his view of everything except shield. Leora takes the rear and discovers that Rowan's backpack has declared war on her staff. They rotate once. Now Leora can see, Rowan can breathe, and Brienne is guarding the wrong direction. A passing party slips around them while the Covenant remains trapped in advanced formation theory. Brienne demonstrates a heroic stride. The narrow doorway votes against it. Rowan measures the corridor with his eyes, then measures his companions with considerably less optimism. Single file should be simple. Their elbows turn it into a three-person siege engine. Leora offers a gentler arrangement and gets one shield rim directly in front of her nose. No monsters have appeared, yet the party has already taken emotional damage. Rowan finally assigns distances instead of positions. It is the first idea the architecture cannot sabotage. Brienne shortens her stride. Leora lowers her staff. Two tiny compromises produce an actual marching order. For 3 glorious steps, they resemble professionals. Then the corridor narrows again. Dawnwell has a sense of humor and terrible timing. The first floor hall pinches tight enough that even the torchlight seems forced into single file. A stone skitters from the dark. Brienne reacts before anybody can decide whether it matters. Her shield catches the threat perfectly. Rowan, standing behind it, is less perfectly positioned. The impact lifts him clean off his feet with all the dignity of luggage thrown onto a cart. Leora looks up just in time to receive one airborne explorer. They hit the floor together. The enemy has not technically attacked either of them. Brienne turns expecting praise and finds a human knot where her formation used to be. Rowan rises with the expression of a man determined to classify humiliation as innovation. His new travel discipline earns Leora's stare and Brienne's painfully sincere consideration. Another scrape echoes ahead. This time, all 3 brace without occupying the same square of floor. Brienne absorbs the rush, but checks behind her before driving forward. Rowan keeps his footing. Leora keeps her staff. Civilization advances by inches. The narrow hall stops being an obstacle once they stop treating it like a parade route. Their formation is still ugly, but ugly and standing beats elegant and unconscious. Dawnwell offers no applause. The bruises will provide feedback later. The moss bridge stretches over black water, slick enough to punish confidence and narrow enough to hide fatigue. Brienne keeps the shield high even as each breath starts arriving one step too late. She calls the trembling in her arm adjusting grip. The shield remains unconvinced. Rowan notices her boots dragging before she notices him noticing. Leora slows without comment, turning concern into a pace change Brienne cannot argue with. Brienne speeds up anyway. Pride is remarkably energetic when the body is not. Her next step lands crooked and the bridge tilts beneath a stance that was supposed to be unbreakable. The shield clips stone. That small sound frightens her more than any monster has. She forces herself upright and smiles with the subtlety of a forged guild stamp. Rowan does not ask whether she is tired. He asks how many steps remain before her knee fails. Specific questions are cruel to specific lies. Brienne makes it 6 more paces before the sword point dips toward the moss. Leora catches her elbow. Rowan catches the shield. Nobody calls it a rescue. For once, Brienne has nothing sharp enough to hide behind. The party stops on the bridge and the dungeon keeps moving around them. They build camp on dry stones no wider than a dining table. Luxury is relative underground. Brienne sits apart, polishing a shield that is already cleaner than her excuse. Rowan lays out water, rations, and rest marks as if weakness were simply another route hazard. Leora quietly adds her own mana limits. Apparently, honesty becomes contagious when nobody laughs. Brienne expects pity. Rowan gives her arithmetic instead. A party planned around imaginary heroes would be impressive right up until the funerals. So Rowan schedules the shield arm, the healer's mana, and his own terrible stamina with equal disrespect. Brienne studies the marks. None of them say burden. Leora passes her water without a comforting speech, which somehow makes accepting it easier. The next rest comes before collapse, not after it. Revolutionary technology, sitting down on purpose. Brienne tests her knee and finds strength returning without permission from her pride. Rowan shifts one marker to account for the bridge slope. The plan changes. Nobody's worth does. For the first time, Brienne sees a formation built around real people instead of impressive silhouettes. She takes the front again, but leaves enough space for Rowan to see past her shoulder. The campfire dies behind them. The lesson does not. The forked gallery bears their chalk mark on the left wall. Garrick is already standing beside it like he invented chalk. His party fills the passage behind him, one archer, one axeman, and exactly one oversized ego in front. Garrick scrapes a boot across Rowan's route line until their careful arrow becomes gray dust. Leora stiffens at his voice. Brienne notices and moves half a step closer without making a ceremony of it. He praises their new formation the way people praise a chair moments before sitting somewhere else. Pell laughs on cue. Nessa studies the corridor, wisely conserving hers. Rowan checks the stolen route, then the unstable routes above it. Garrick has taken more than their path. Brienne wants the insult answered with steel. Rowan prefers consequences that file their own paperwork. Garrick marches left with his party arranged for appearance, not the narrow ground beneath them. His spear catches a hanging root before he even reaches the bend. Dawnwell begins collecting payment immediately. Leora watches him disappear and finally releases the breath she had been holding. Rowan redraws the route toward the right fork. A stolen bad idea remains a bad idea. Brienne reluctantly lowers her sword, saving the sharp edge for something capable of learning. The trio takes the unmarked corridor while Garrick's laughter fades into distant swearing. Sometimes losing the race is how you avoid becoming the obstacle. The root-choked gallery is quiet in the suspicious way only occupied places manage. Dust trickles from the wall. Rowan looks up one heartbeat before the wall grows teeth. Burrowing rats burst through mortar from 3 directions and immediately invalidate the marching order. Brienne charges the nearest movement, leaving the center open exactly as the swarm intended. Leora raises her staff, but claws on stone drag every old fear back into her hands. Rowan calls a retreat that nobody can hear over shields, shrieks, and several pounds of furious rodent. One rat dives low, Brienne blocks high. Their teamwork has discovered vertical disagreement. Another drops behind Leora, turning the safe rear into a very unsafe middle. Rowan's appraisal catches fragments, bad teeth, weak joints, too many targets, and no time to sort them. The formation folds into 3 separate fights, which is a generous name for what happens next. Brienne can stop anything in front of her. The rats simply refuse to stay there. Leora's first healing spark dies when she flinches from another breach. Rowan drags them toward a stone throat where the walls can no longer attack from everywhere. They reach it bruised, breathless, and still technically a party. The swarm circles outside. Dawnwell has finished laughing and started testing. Rowan studies the choke point and finally stops asking Brienne to become faster than she is. He plants her shield between 2 broken pillars where the stone does half the guarding. Brienne dislikes being stationary until the first rat crashes into her and goes nowhere. A second follows, then a third. The immovable object has discovered repeat customers. Rowan marks the only open lane with his blade and leaves the rest to architecture. Brienne no longer chases targets. Every target is forced to apply directly to Brienne. Her stamina lasts longer once Panic stops spending it for her. A rat claws over the shield rim. She shifts 1 inch instead of swinging 1 yard. The creature drops into Rowan's lane, precisely where his weak strike can still matter. For the first time, Brienne's limitation looks suspiciously like battlefield control. She braces lower and feels the pillars take the impact through her boots. Rowan calls the rhythm. Brienne answers with shield, shoulder, and increasingly delighted violence. The swarm compresses itself into a problem narrow enough for 3 beginners to solve. Brienne grins behind the shield. Nobody has ever made standing still feel this useful. An anchor does not need to chase the battle comes to it. Behind Brienne's shield, Leora finally has something fear never gives her: time. The first healing thread trembles between her fingers, but does not break. Brienne takes another impact and stays exactly where Rowan promised she would. That certainty gives Leora room to step forward instead of farther back. She lays one hand against Brienne's shoulder, healing bruised muscle before it can become failure. The spell is smaller than her old bursts and lasts twice as long. Efficiency is less glamorous and much more alive. A rat slips through the lane. Leora flinches, then keeps the spell connected. Rowan intercepts it with a strike that would look braver if his face agreed. Leora moves with the shield line, matching Brienne's breath instead of fighting her own fear. Each controlled pulse buys another impact, another second, and another chance. Brienne stops checking whether the healer is behind her. Trust is quieter than reassurance. The golden thread steadies until it looks less like panic and more like purpose. Leora has not become fearless. She has simply found something worth moving while afraid for. The shield advances one deliberate step, and the light advances with it. For the first time, all three weaknesses are facing the same direction. With the line holding, Rowan finally has enough seconds to let appraisal finish being useful. The swarm becomes a flood of flaws: torn ears, weak ankles, cracked teeth, and universally poor manners. One larger rat keeps the others moving from behind the pack. Rowan tracks it through the bodies by a red ear and a personality visible from several yards away. His target call is not heroic, but it is extremely specific. Brienne angles the shield and turns the swarm's pressure into an opening. Leora shifts her healing thread without breaking it, freeing one hand for a flash of light. The leader recoils, and Rowan's perfect plan immediately requires him to run much faster than Rowan can run. Brienne redirects him with the shield. This time, the airborne travel is almost intentional. He lands inside striking distance with dignity unavailable for comment. The leader lunges. Rowan shows Brienne the cracked side instead of trying to overpower it himself. Her blade hits the weakness appraisal found, not the armor strength could never beat. Leora seals the opening behind them with one bright pulse. The swarm leader falls, and every lesser rat suddenly remembers an urgent appointment elsewhere. Precision has done what power could not, and only embarrassed Rowan moderately. Silence returns to the gallery, one fleeing tail at a time. The trio remains standing. Nobody was rescued by coincidence, structural collapse, or a merciful enemy. Brienne checks the corridor twice before allowing herself one victorious breath. Leora's healing light fades with mana still left in reserve, a miracle achieved through budgeting. Rowan counts injuries and discovers the alarming total of none requiring immediate panic. They stare at one another, waiting for disaster to reveal the hidden fee. When nothing attacks, Brienne celebrates hard enough to nearly create a new injury herself. Leora laughs, first softly and then with the relief of somebody setting down a year of fear. Rowan attempts professional restraint. His grin commits mutiny. Their first clean victory is not grand, but it belongs entirely to them. Brienne's shield bears fresh gouges. Leora's hands have stopped shaking. Rowan is only limping the normal amount. For one reckless moment, three beginners feel invincible. Then dust falls from a wall nobody touched. The celebration stops. Dawnwell has excellent comedic timing and deeply concerning foundations. Behind the cracked masonry, something older than the dungeon catches Rowan's sight. Ordinary mortar has split open to reveal stone too smooth, too pale, and far too deliberate. Appraisal flickers across the seam and returns a name Rowan has only seen in forbidden footnotes: Elendrian. The word turns a beginner dungeon into a question nobody sensible would answer underground. Brienne taps the surface with her sword pommel. The note rings deeper than the wall should be. Leora finds dust trapped in the joint, untouched by damp, roots, or several centuries of neglect. Rowan traces the circular pattern and realizes the visible corridor was built over something else. The newer stones are a disguise. The ancient seam is the thing being hidden. A faint pulse passes beneath his fingers, too regular for settling masonry. Brienne takes watch while Rowan follows the line toward the floor. The mark continues under their boots and vanishes beneath the water channel. Leora's light catches symbols worn almost smooth. One resembles the Covenant crest by uncomfortable coincidence. Rowan memorizes every angle instead of opening anything. Curiosity is useful. Sealed ancient doors are patient. The discovery is worth more than the expedition and considerably more dangerous than the rats. They cover the scene with loose rubble and admittedly optimistic amount of secrecy. Dawnwell lets them leave with the mystery. For now, that feels less like mercy than an invitation. Dusk waits at Dawnwell's mouth, turning 3 exhausted silhouettes into something almost heroic. Brienne lingers at the threshold, while Rowan and Leora divide the remaining supplies. Her temporary guild token feels heavier now that the expedition is over. She rehearses a casual farewell and produces a silence long enough to become suspicious. Leora notices first. Rowan notices when Leora elbows him with healer-grade precision. Brienne asks whether being useful once might be enough to stay useful tomorrow. The question comes out like a report because Hope feels safer in armor. Leora's answer is already in the way she reaches for Brienne's hand. Rowan makes her wait exactly 1 cruel second, mostly because emotional competence remains his lowest stat. Useful is temporary. Belonging is the part Brienne never learned how to request. Rowan gives her that answer with all the tenderness of a badly thrown brick. Brienne laughs once, then discovers her eyes have betrayed the formation. Leora pulls both of them into an embrace Rowan is structurally unprepared to survive. 3 battered beginners leave Dawnwell as a permanent party, still weak, still ridiculous, and finally complete. Behind them, the ancient seam keeps its secret. Ahead of them, the Covenant has gained its shield. And that is where we leave them today, alive, technically successful, and already standing much too close to the next problem. If you enjoyed the episode, like the video, subscribe, and come back for the next chapter of The Weakest Explorer.